Okay, we're back. Spreading the glue. Got it all spread inwards. Then I'm going to take my cardboard, and remember I made that little mark in the corner. I also have the mark here on the page, so I know which way this went. If you don't get it back on there the same way, it's gonna be fine. I just do it in case my cardboard's crooked. And then you'll notice, like, after you put the glue on, that it is a little bit wrinkly back here, so you'll take your bone folder and just smooth that out. Get some nice, smooth glue in there and get it really pressed down. Sometimes the paper will stick into the corrugation on the cardboard, so I will take it and just firmly tug down. It'll kind of tighten the edges and pull it out of some of those wrinkles. Not necessary, but it's just something I like to do. Okay, then you're going to need a piece of scrap paper. See, printed on one side, didn't need it. Scrap paper. I do this rather than doing it on any other surface because after I've used the paper quite a few times, I can just throw it away. So you're going to take your glue. You're going to do two opposite sides to start with. So just do one side and one side, or this side and this side. It's up to you. Doesn't really matter. So you just swirl some glue on there. I guess you don't have to swirl. You can put it in a line. But that's how I roll. And then you're going to take your brush and just spread it out evenly. Brushing also helps to make sure that you don't get too much, because I've used too much glue, especially when I first started and my covers were getting really bent. And then I'm going to take my bone folder and just, bring that edge up. Just kind of make sure it's tight against the side and then press it down and go like this. This is where if you got too much glue on the edge here, when you put it on, when you fold this over and press it down, it is going to squish out everywhere. But that's okay. It's just a mess. Okay, so I've got those two edges down, and then you'll notice, since I'm not perfect, I know, it's a shock, I'll get little bits of paper that are still sticking out from those edges we just folded down. Now, if I were to just fold this edge over, you'd end up with this ugly little pointy corner sticking out, and it doesn't look finished. See, there's a lot of paper left right there. So what you're going to do is take your bone folder, if you have one. If not, I'm sure you'll be resourceful enough to find something else. And you're going to actually use the bone folder to press that corner in. I can't do it without being on the table, but I thought I'd show you that. But you just put it up against the side here and press that edge in. See, it just kind of folded it in. You do that to all four corners. And if you don't get it all the way in, don't worry about it. As long as you get it most of the way, it's really going to improve the look of your book. Don't worry about it looking pretty in there once you've tucked it in, because that part's going to get covered up. So, I've got all my covers covered in. And then when you bring your scrapbook paper out, if you're using the same page, please make sure that you're not sticking your book back into wet glue. I've done that several times, and then it rips the paper off, and then I want to cry because I just ruined all that work. Okay, now, glue, 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 glue. Some more swirlies, or whatever you prefer. And you want to make sure when you do this part to really get over those corners that you folded in, make sure those have a good amount of glue on them, because those are going to be the bulky sections, so those really need to, be able to stick down. Just brush it out. There's nothing very neat about this craft, which is nice, because I don't do neat. Oh, one thing I will mention is if during this process at any point you get either the paper way too gluey when you're putting it on, or you get too much glue, and your cardboard does get kind of, it will warp and bend. It's like this one. I did that to it. I don't think you can really tell here, but it is bent a little bit. So what I will do is sometimes when I'm making my books, after I've put all the glue on, just to kind of straighten them out, I will put them under something heavy. I have a huge box of tiles that weighs like 40 pounds. So I'll set these under there to dry completely so they dry flat. I was pretty good with my glue, so I'm not going to have an issue with this one. Okay, so now you see we have this big square of ugly cardboard. Nobody wants to see that. And that's where you take your accent color, and this is cut in just a 4x4 so that I still have a little border showing, because if I cut it the full size, I would have the edges sticking out and they'd end up getting bumped and peeled back, so I make it a 4x4 so I've got a border around. You just flip that over. If you're really talented, you can use the same pattern paper and make it match up, but yeah, not me. So I get around the outside first and just kind of get some in the middle. And this part you're just going to be kind of messy on. Just want to make sure and get good coverage so it sticks down, because you don't want bubbles. Okay. I always move my paper out of the way, otherwise I stick my covers back into the wet glue. Stick it somewhere in the center there and make sure that it's really well pressed down. Make sure the edges especially. And then you take your bone folder and just go over the middle so that you make sure everything's really well adhered so you don't end up with bubbles. Nobody likes a bubbly notebook. Okay. And again, I just want to make sure those edges are down. See, that's done. And thanks to the magic of TV, I have two made. I feel like one of those professional chefs when I have my meal done in like 3 seconds. Okay, maybe not. Alright, so we've got those made. Now that we have the covers made, we need to make the pages for the book. And what we're going to do is, the pages for the book are actually called signatures. You'll see reference to those if you look up information online. It's not a complicated word. Signatures is what they call them. It just means the pages of the book. And rather than putting in just simple squares of paper and having to sew through the edges, signatures are done with you double the length of the book. Since I want my pages to be 4x4, I cut them out in 4x8 and then fold them over. So I'm going to show you how to do that real quick here. I just cut right here 4 inches wide. Okay, and since this is 8.5 by 11 paper, I can get 2 sets of signatures out of one sheet. And I just use plain copy paper. You can use decorated paper, recycled paper, fancy paper. These I don't save. I usually like to try to reuse stuff, but they end up being a mess for me. So you could use them on Easter baskets or to stuff gifts if you do that sort of thing. And then we're going to turn it the other way and cut it 8 inches. If you're doing a 6x6 book, you'd cut your paper 6x12. See, we're learning math. And then when you've done cutting this piece, these little pieces off the end I do find very handy for scrap paper. So I save those. Save what you can, reuse what you can. You can also use these to make like matchbook notepads, which maybe I'll do a tutorial on those and show you how to make them. They're really fun and easy, but save what you can, reuse what you can, let your kids draw on them. You give a kid a little stack of tiny papers, they're going to think that's the coolest thing ever. At least my kids do. Okay. There we go. Now we've got them folded. Page cutter away. And then you want to take your pages. Oh, and I thought I'd mention, I do 5 sheets at a time. I don't like to do too many because then you can't get a nice fold on them. I do 5 sheets at a time. So then, when you fold it over and crease it, you're going to actually have 10 pages. So you want to make sure these edges are fairly lined up. I like to turn it over and tamp it down. And yes, tamp is a real word, I promise. Look it up. And then you'll just gently press down with your fingers to start with. The reason you don't want to press really hard just right away is because you'll end up with really bad wrinkles. So press with your fingers to start with, and then kind of go over it a few times with the bone folder, putting more pressure on it until you get a nice hard crease in there. And voila! You have 10 4x4 pages. Easy peasy. Now, okay, I'm going to go ahead and come right back. I'll see you in a second. Click on part 3.